How's it going? It's the Libertarian Trucker here. I've been focusing mainly on road etiquette, videos of that nature up until essentially lately I've thrown some of the sites and stuff that I've been seeing and all that. But tonight I have decided that I'm going to dive right into a libertarian conversation content partnered with Christian ideology and mainly focusing on a couple topics stemming from a post that a friend of mine had made. And I'm just extremely frustrated with groups of people. So I want to address that in this video. So this is going to be longer than a short. Hopefully I can keep it somewhat condensed and direct and to the point. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. So Tennessee, this guy I know posts a article, basically just a screenshot of an article and then some information connected to it about Tennessee passing this law on banning transgender folks from competing in sports and banning tents and makeshift homes in public places and stuff of that nature. And it really just it got me fired up. And here's why. I'm sick and tired of Christians. I myself am a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. I believe the Christian doctrine. I believe he is the Son of God. He is God. He was also fully man. I believe he died and resurrected. You can call me whatever you want. That's my belief. That's where this comes from, okay? I am sick and tired of Christians pretending like they actually give a crap about the world and the all that ails the world, all of the sin, all of the torment, all of the pain, all of the hurt, all of the hatred, talking about homelessness and how do we address this and laws and how do we address wickedness and sin and idolatry and all this other stuff. And they completely lick the boot. If you don't know what bootlickers are and you don't understand that term, this video is not going to be for you. I'm going to encourage you to go watch some other videos. Go to YouTube, do some Google search, and look up the term bootlicker, okay? I'm sick and tired of Christians being statists, especially when they don't themselves live out the very call that they're putting forth to the government and or police. And what I mean by that is that Christ and his disciples, the apostles, and the first century church and the historical church has always been taught and has taught for Christians to go out and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, all of that stuff. That's called the Great Commission. Okay? The Great Commission doesn't mandate, it doesn't prescribe, it doesn't tell Christians to go out and make mandates in cultures that are not Christian cultures or not Christian nations. And even really, there is no such thing as a Christian nation. There was a nation called Israel that was God's chosen people. He chose to give them a certain group of land. He helped them fight wars and battles that they shouldn't have been able to win. Miracles happened, all that stuff. They established Israel, and they had a rule of law that was based on the 10 Commandments and other dietary laws and other sanitary laws and stuff like that. Okay, that's completely different. That is not the Christian doctrine. That is not the Christian faith. That is not what we've been prescribed as Christians to do. We've been told to go and affect change in the hearts and the minds through getting people to believe in Jesus, getting them to accept his doctrine and his teaching and his ways of life. There's nothing. I'm begging anybody. I'll put a challenge out there to anybody. Please present to me biblical references, scripture, of prescriptions where God has established his rule through humankind and Christians to establish a theonomic rule of law all across the world, in nations, in different environments. I'm begging you, please. Now, I'm not against a moral law. I'm not against a moral code. I personally believe that abortion is a violation of NAP. As a libertarian, do no harm. That is my belief. But I also hold to the fact that I believe that abortion is murder. I believe human life starts at conception. That is a biblical belief. Yes, I will stand on that, and I will also encourage you to believe the same if I am in a personal relationship with you, or I will post things that should challenge your thinking if I'm doing my job. Okay? We don't need more laws that are going to be geared towards homeless people and not being able to set up camps in public places. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do. I'm saying that you as a Christian should address the homelessness issue. You shouldn't be passing your authority, your buck, onto the government and cops to do what you should be doing. We shouldn't be using tax monies. We shouldn't be having police forces, for one. We need less laws. We should be policing the streets. We should be holding each other accountable. And if we're going to go back to the historical United States of America, before there was 50 states, there was colonies. These colonies were established by groups of people who either believed similarly enough on the moral code and moral standard of that colony that they would reside within it and they would help each other. First, they would help themselves establish a place to live, a business that they could either barter with or essentially sell for the value of applied value or conceived value of another piece of food, harvested food, animals, herds, or products, cutting down trees and making things, benches, or even just the service of cutting down the tree, the value there. There's a way of life that took place in the establishment of the United States, and I'm not saying that all of it was correct. Slavery and all that stuff, unacceptable. However, the majority of how things were set up when it comes to borders and colonies and then the adoption of states, each state decided to have a constitution, okay? They agreed to a certain set of parameters that they were going to govern themselves with. They didn't have police forces. They didn't have all these government agencies that were infringing on the rights of the citizens. We don't need that. And when you tell me that we can't have what I believe that we should is going backwards, when you're saying that we can't go backwards until we go forward with more laws and more restrictions and more guidance and guidelines from government to police to arrest the people that you don't necessarily agree with the way they're living, is unacceptable to me. It's circular reasoning. You're saying to get to this point, we need to go up here and then come back here. No, we need to, because we're already here. We need to go back. We need to go counterclockwise. We need to roll the restrictions back. Prohibition has never worked. Okay? You don't get to just go out and tell the government to make these laws that take taxes to fund police agencies to then go arrest people simply because they're homeless. All right? For one, if it's a public place, maybe you should be using some societal pressures. Or maybe you should be helping them find a job or find a place to live. If they're homeless, why don't we put them to work in the town? Why don't we have places where we come together as a community, or Christians, why don't you do what the United Way does? Why don't you pool your money together, build some houses, and then for the people that are homeless that want to not necessarily work and have these tax, burdens and the paying the monopolies and working for the pedophiles and working for the rich elite people, because there is a somewhat of a moral compass, a moral value that is good within a lot of homeless people. They're sick and tired of the system. Okay, so if they don't want to participate in the system, why don't you go build some houses, pool your money together? Why don't you build some houses and then say, oh, if you want to live in this house, how about you come clean the community? Every day you do community service. You pick up the trash. You something. Come, work at my house. Help me tend my fields. Mow my lawn. Maintain the house and you can live in it. But instead you guys are saying, no, government, Tennessee, you folks in Tennessee are about to vote on this stuff probably. Your leaders are about to say that it's illegal to be homeless in theory. Essentially, in practicality, that's what's going to happen. Then on the next topic is transgender folks playing sports. I think it's a mental disorder. I think it's a spiritual war that needs to be fought with truth and with consideration, with counseling, and with love. And I don't think transgender men, I don't think biological men should be able to play in women's sports. That's just the way that I believe, and I think the overwhelming majority of libertarians agree with the same thing. Biology is biology. If you want to make yourself into, a female replica, go ahead and do whatever the heck you're going to do. Don't force it on children. Don't push your propaganda out there and essentially make laws that bring things about like Obama did, making the transgender bathroom bullcrap with North Carolina and all. That's a whole bunch of bullcrap. People can use whatever freaking bathroom they want to as long as they're not sick and demented individuals that are using that to hurt other people. Okay? Whatever. Go out and use the bathroom. But hey, women. Hey, girls. How about you refuse to play those sports if the schools, the colleges are going to allow biological males to play those sports? Whatever happened to societal pressures, societal norms, making it unacceptable, making it impossible for them to compete? You don't need the government to tell the schools that it's illegal, that it can't happen. We don't need more government, people. We need Americans to stand up, band together, and say enough is enough. You're not going to do this here. We're not going to allow it here. And if that means that we stop the school sports and we go create our own private league, we create a private league. It can be done. There have been interscholastic sports happening around for eternity. As long as there's been human beings, There's always been sports or competition. Some of them, the Aztecs and some of the other sports were like, the losing team, you're bumping the elbow, onto a rock that's through a sideways basketball hoop, and there's only one goal, scored, and the loser gets axed and all that. I'm not saying we need to go back to all that. However, we don't need the government to be bigger. We don't. We need the people, the individuals, the culture, the community to be bigger. Go out there and speak at your school board meetings. We shouldn't even have public schools when it comes to government-funded public schooling. You should be pooling your money together, not paying taxes, and if you want to educate your children in a social environment, put them in a school that you're funding. If you don't want to educate your children in a public school, you shouldn't have to. If you're a business owner and you want to teach your kids, and your kids want to learn the family trade, learn how to be a plumber, a master welder, a truck driver, they should be able to do that and not have to go to public schools. Public schools and more government is why we're in the mess that we're in. So we're never going to come back to this point if we're up here and thinking we're just going to circle the freaking wagon, people. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You do not roll back to freedom by giving more authority and power to the government. It's stupid. It's circular. It's retarded. It really is retarded. You guys don't understand what you're trying to speak forward and believe. You can't reach a point of freedom and liberty and understanding. Christians, you're never going to win the hearts and minds of people through mandates and dictates. That's literally what Jesus freaking preached about and against when it comes to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He called them whitewashed tombs. Whitewashed sepulchers. Because they were holding people accountable to laws and mandates and restrictions that they themselves weren't even living up to. They were hypocrites. Then on top of that, he confronted the way that they were upholding the law, and they were completely missing it. They were missing it. And that's why he said that the entirety of the law will be summed up in these two things. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. If those two things can't be understood by you Christians, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but there's two laws, right? And we believe as libertarians to do no harm. Take no shit. Non-aggression principle, right? Don't force others to do what you expect them to do unless they're harming other people. I'm going to interject if somebody is beating up on an innocent person and I know they're innocent. I'm going to interject. We all should. There are moral things that we need to stand on as a society or it collapses. And if there are individuals that want to live a complete and utter anarchist type of way with no set of standards, no guidelines, no nothing, then they should be able to do it in their own situation, their own culture, their own community. If they go and buy 30 acres, if they go and buy 30,000 acres, they should be able to do it and live however the hell they want to. As long as they don't infringe and come onto the borders that have been already established and what they've agreed upon, if they're not coming and bringing their complete chaos, and anarchy for one isn't even complete chaos. Anarchy is no rulers. And I, as a Christian anarchist, is no king but Christ. So his law governs me. His law supersedes the government law. I am bound by a moral obligation through my faith to defy to absolutely defy unjust and ungodly laws. Romans 13 is completely misunderstood by the majority of Christians today. I've shared that stuff. I can go into it at another time, or I can link a video to explaining that. Some other people in the Defy Tyrants movement have already addressed that, and I could just send you to their video and what they talk about. I 100% agree with the view that they hold when it comes to defying tyrants and Romans 13. 100%. So people, we need liberty. Okay? We should love our neighbors. We shouldn't go out stealing their stuff. We shouldn't go out banging their wife. As a Christian, I believe that should be true. But if you're voluntarily having a non-monogamous relationship, that's on you. I'm going to tell you that it's probably not healthy, for one, because men can really barely even handle one woman, let alone two. However, that works for you, that works for you. I think it's ungodly. I think it's unjust. I think you're doing yourself and others a disservice. I think you might, be bringing things into your life that you don't necessarily need to bring. But I can't mandate that of you. I'm not going to mandate that of you, because you are an individual making a choice that is not harming yourself and or others purposefully. If you are, then I will hold you accountable. If you are murdering, raping, stealing, if you're breaking people's stuff, if you're, presenting a hazard to somebody, which, is unnecessarily, I'm going to correct you. I'm going to confront you. You don't have to accept my correction until it comes to the point where you're actually starting to harm somebody. And then we as a people, me as an individual, should step in and make sure that no longer happens. And this is the thing that you guys don't understand as statists and as Christians who push that Romans 13 governance nonsense. Somebody is always asserting dominance over somebody, right? So why don't we have it be the individuals and as minimal government as possible, if not no government, and we just assert what needs to happen through the agreement, an agreed upon essentially contract, a voluntary society that says this is what we are going to accept here on this property or in this region. Anything beyond that is a violation and you need to go. If it's a certain violation, we are going to hold you accountable, and perhaps that needs to be a punishment. If you go out and you rob a bunch of people, maybe you need to be forced to do some labor. And that's what the majority of the Bible actually talks about when it comes to slavery, is indentured servitude. Somebody did something wrong to somebody else, now they have to work it off. Or somebody borrowed money, they couldn't pay for their house, they couldn't pay for their land, they had to borrow money, now they couldn't pay it back, now they're an indentured servant. The slavery of the Old Testament is very much different than chattel slavery, which is essentially treating individuals as less than based on their economic status, their race, their creed, their religion, any of that stuff. That is completely unacceptable. The Bible does not defend that. It doesn't. I don't care what anybody says, what any Christian tries to tell you, what any atheist that is trying to skew what the Bible says, any doctrine. The Bible does not defend chattel slavery in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't. However, you screw up and you owe a debt, you can't pay it, well, maybe you should be forced to do some labor. If I'm paying for you to live, you should pay me back somehow. I shouldn't expect that to happen as an individual giving to another individual, but as a community, if we're gonna allow you to associate voluntarily in our society, in our agreed upon construct that might be Ancapistan, and then next to Ancapistan is Ankamistan or whatever whatever, set of standards, whether that's economic or otherwise, societal contracts, laws, murders, individual people can do that. We don't need police to do that. Police are just like you and I. They aren't just gifted from up above to be a police officer. That's just not how I can't get it through my head when you people think that that's the way that things should be, that we should give government the role that we're supposed to have. One, you guys are all okay with paying taxes as long as the welfare people are getting taken care of, but you'll never give above the 10% that you give to your church and your tithes. You don't go out and you don't feed the homeless. You don't put people up in hotels. You don't bring homeless people back to your home. I'm sick and tired of Christians not walking out the call that God has placed on their life and then putting the burden of what that's supposed to look like into the government's hands, and then the government has more authority and more power. The Great Depression, for instance. Before the Great Depression happened, the majority of the social welfare was the United States American citizens, and it was the church. That was the majority of the money and the funds, the food and the housing and all that stuff. For crying out loud, up until the early 2000s, there was a bunch of programs for travelers aid, that was used by people like me, somewhat unrighteously, but there was a couple times where it was legit righteously used, where I was stranded and the church organizations helped me get home. It doesn't happen anymore. Where's the food pantries? Very, very rarely do I see actual food pantries. I see Christian churches and churches, bringing in some government funded bullcrap into their food ministry, and you Christians think, oh, it's okay, we're doing our civic duty, we're doing our godly duty. I'm talking about a food pantry, bro. If you're a farmer raising cattle, why aren't you giving a cattle away, a cow away, a half a cow, a quarter of a cow? Feeding people, doing things the right way, not just, oh, I'm going to agree to a 15% tax on my income, and we're going to send it to the government, and then we're going to expect that the government somehow isn't going to skim a little off the top there, and all that money's going to go to the poor people that are on welfare. You guys are a joke. It's a joke. You are the reason why the government is so wicked today, because you guys have given them the authority that they do not have. Romans 13 does not, I repeat, does not prescribe setting up government systems. What it says and what it addresses needs to be looked at through the lens of what Romans as a book, what the Roman book author lived through and experienced, and who he was writing the book to. Whether you believe it was Luke, whether it was the Apostle Paul, whoever you believe wrote the book of Romans, maybe there was a couple different authors, whatever it is, it has to be through the context of who wrote it, who was it being written to, what was the time that they were living in, and what is the meaning, what is the direct response that this would have had by the people that were getting it, receiving it, right? The context is there was Jewish authorities prescribed and conscribed by the Roman authorities that were essentially governors given authority from the Roman dictates to then dictate as the Hebrew rulers, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the people that kept the Hebrew people in line. That was the context of who he was writing to and who he was talking about. Romans 13. Before Romans 13 comes Romans 12. After Romans 13 comes Romans 14. Go read it. It doesn't say what you think it says, Christians who push that, submit to governing authorities nonsense on just a across the board thing. It doesn't say it. However, we should respect authority. As Christians who are wiser, who are more experienced, who we know and we trust is bringing forward the things of God and the ways of God, that is more along the lines of what Romans 13 is about. There is some governance application there, but it's not just every dictate, every mandate that comes down from unjust and ungodly, especially pedophile, drug dealing, insider trading, pocket being filled with insider trading and special interest group scumbags telling me how I need to live my life when they're not doing the same thing. They're hypocrites. Their authority is null. Romans 13 does not tell me I have to live that way. It doesn't. So with all that said, I'm going to try and wrap it up. We're about 31 and a half minutes here. We don't need more government, people. We don't need to go harping on homeless people and putting more government restrictions and more mandates and more laws and more expectations for homeless people that are already saying fuck the system. We don't need more. We don't need more. We need to address the issue of homelessness. We need to address the issue of addiction. We need to address the issue of why these people do not want to participate in the system that they find themselves in. That's what we need to address. Stop putting it on the government and expecting the government to do the job righteously that you should be doing. If you believe that these things need to be doing, why don't you go out and do them? And if we can't do some of the things like remove people from my property because of laws, well, guess what you need to do? You need to go and force the laws to be changed or be done away with. Take over your county legislation. Take over the sheriff's department. Take over the freaking police department. Take over the Board of Education. Take over these things. Wipe them out, and that is the libertarian platform. Wipe them out. Decentralize everything. Wipe them out, dude. Join them, beat them, wipe it out. Start over with a structure that could be managed by you, by the neighbor, by the we that we find ourselves in. Not these politicians that didn't ever grow up in the stuff that we went through. Half of them didn't even be raised up or live in the communities that they're supposedly representing. They have no obligation to represent you. They have an obligation to represent the people that are putting money in their pockets. They just take your tax money and do whatever the hell they want with it anyways. I just don't understand why you guys don't see this. And it's not that this is just some utopia. I'm not talking about utopia. I'm talking about hard fucking work. I'm talking about going out there and getting shit done yourself with people. If you can't get elected, then maybe your opinions are trash. If you can't get enough people, and maybe you don't need to be elected. Maybe that's not how the system has to go. Maybe it is just total anarchy and chaos for a little bit. But if there's enough people that are agreeing to a certain set of standards, maybe you can band together and make stuff happen and tear down the walls of Jericho that is the city government. Maybe you get a group of Christians to literally march on a regular basis. Put your comfortability aside. Put your job and your career aside. Go out there and do something that matters. Stop living in their system a slave, expecting them to honor the oath that they gave forth, and stop expecting them to live righteously and have righteous standards, and stop expecting them to not be corrupt. You're not even doing your jobs as Christians. How do you expect them to do their jobs when you're not even holding yourselves accountable? Clean your house first. Get your shit in order before you try to mandate and dictate to other people that they have to do things your way. And when it comes to your way, you don't even know what your way is because you don't even live it. You're a bunch of hypocrites, dude. And with that, I will say that there is work that we all need to do. We need to love each other. Part of that love means that we confront each other and we hold each other to a set of standards. And if you're a family, you do things the way that the family does it. Some things might need to be changed and shifted a little bit, but articulate your argument. Give reason to why things need to change. And maybe they will change. We need to stop expecting change to happen before we're actually willing to be the change ourselves. I know that platitude is so worn out. Oh, be the change you want to see. I know it's worn out. But I'm dead serious. Be the change you want to see. You want people to live righteously? Go live righteously. Go live as the commands have come forth and been brought down to you through the apostles, through the historical Orthodox Church. And no, I'm not talking about the Russian Orthodox or Catholic Orthodox or, I'm saying orthodoxy, Orthodox Church, the solid doctrine of Jesus Christ and his resurrection and penalty and payment for your sin. Libertarians, for the most part, would agree. Do what you're going to do. Live it out. And if you're going to go and influence people's individual minds and hearts and bring people into your faith belief, I'm willing to bet 99% of the libertarians out there, even if they're atheists, would say that that's acceptable. They might say that you're stupid. They might say that your faith is nonsense. They may say that it's a lie, all of that stuff. But if you're doing it through personal relationships and you're not forcing your beliefs on other people and you're just building relationships, I'm willing to bet that they say go ahead, fine, and dandy. With that, one more thing I'm going to talk about. Historically speaking, there have been a couple supposed Christian nations. One, United States, but that's not even necessarily true because half of the people were Masons. They didn't believe in God. They were atheists, and there was all sorts of other beliefs that were interjected there as well. So the United States is not a Christian nation. South Africa, some people have talked about South Africa and some other nations as well, but really that's not even necessarily true. Outside of a couple small, minute situations, the Christian people have always been set apart from, not establishing their own. So they've been in the world, but not of it. So they've lived among people, and yet they held themselves to a higher standard. Jesus said that you have heard it said that a man shall not kill or murder. But I say to you that if a man holds hatred and contempt in his heart, then he is already guilty of murder, right? So the law of Jesus is superseding the law of mankind in the heart of a Christian, the life of a Christian, right? So I can go and I can live like the Puritans did in the Netherlands, which was a total hedonistic society, completely void of moral standards. The Puritans left religious, hear me with this, Christian. The Puritans left a Christian, religious, albeit Catholic and Anglican rift, government status type of government and nation. They left a religious nation and fled to a hedonistic society in the Netherlands. And they prospered. You know why they prospered? Because they held themselves to the standard and not the people that they were living amongst. Get that through your thick skull. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Hold yourself and your church and your community, your Christian community, to the standards that you claim that you believe in. Then you go out and reach the world and make them disciples. And there will be people that start to shift the way that they believe, the way that they tend to live, and the way that they tend to be selfish and prideful and arrogant and all of those things. All of that is a byproduct of coming to faith in Jesus Christ. It is not a conscription or a prescription and a mandate from Jesus for those who do not believe in him. Prohibition never works. Go look at the prohibition of alcohol. That worked real good. Prohibition of marijuana. That worked real good. It doesn't work. Prohibition of the oldest work, sex work, prostitution. How does that work, people? It's worked real well. Schedule I drugs. Heroin, crack. Marijuana, for crying out loud. I don't even understand that, but that's a whole nother rant. Let's be realistic, people. Prohibition mandates never work. They never present, they never bring forward the desired result that you people believe they are going to bring. Never happened. Ever, historically. And Christians have always lived among people, lived set apart in a way when it comes to the standards of business, the moral standards of how they're going to raise their children, the moral standards of how they're going to run their business, their farm, their establishment. They're always going to do things right. They're going to use weights that are equal, and the measure is going to be honest, and there's going to be integrity. All of those things is the way that Christians are called to live among the people. Don't do dirty business as a Christian, because God's going to hold you accountable. Don't lie. Don't steal. Don't steal hours. Don't claim to your boss that you worked 45 hours knowing damn well you only worked 40. That's theft, right? Those are the morals. Those are the standards that Christians are supposed to live by. But that's what you're supposed to live by, and you're supposed to lead by example. And you're supposed to give a reason as to why you live this way, and the Holy Spirit will guide you to bring people into the faith. You cannot mandate people into faith. And if the goal of Christians is to go and make disciples of the nations, you can't make disciples by mandating they live as a disciple before they're a disciple. That's not how it works, people. It's not how it works. If they don't want to live the way that you're living, they're going to hate you for it. The teenage daughter and the strict parents going out having sex with the neighbor boy as part of a rebellious stage is proof enough that you idiots need to get it through your thick skull. You got to live it. You got to touch the hearts and minds of people and then change the world that way, not through mandates and prohibition. There is a certain set of moral standards that we need to have in a voluntary society. If you don't agree with those moral sets of standards, then go be somewhere else. You're not welcome here. I don't see why that's so hard to understand. And with that, I'm going to say this is Chris, the Libertarian Trucker. I hope you guys get something out of this. If you guys have any questions, if you got any topics that you got that you want me to talk about, if you guys want to have a conversation, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to leave a comment. Like and subscribe. If you want to get notifications, click that bell button. Be better. Do better.